from where I grew up. I grew up in India. I grew up in Delhi. Um, so I did my engineering and computer sciences. And this is like back, I would say like almost 14, 15 years back. I did my engineering and computer sciences, came to US in 2004 for my master's, and that master's was in management science and engineering. So I did my MS in MSNE here in Bay Area, and have been here in Bay Area since last 14 years. My first role, like after my graduation, was actually for a startup. So I worked for a startup for 2 years as a business analyst and there was this company called Efficient Frontier, which was actually later acquired by Adobe. And it was a pretty, like when I joined the company, we were like 35 people. And by the time I left, we were around 200 people. First time kind of like in corporate world in US actually, like coming from India, it was a pretty interesting, I would say, like experience just to be part of the workforce here. Learned a lot. We were like, I started learning a lot about corporate terminologies, language which people use, how like everything was so new and exciting, I would say in that sense. But 2 years into the role, I was like, my roommate at that time, actually, he said that like, there's an opportunity in finance at Google. Would you like to take it, or would you like to interview for the position? And I said, sure, why not? Like I was starting to kind of like feel the need to challenge myself and do something different. So that's when I kind of like applied to Google, and interestingly, I got the offer, even though I did not have any specific finance background. And this opportunity was in FP&A, product financial planning and analysis of the corporate finance, essentially at Google. Again, like something which I hadn't done in the past, but I was up for the challenge. So I started my Google career in corporate finance, was there for 8 years. And then like then I switched to operations 3 years back. So currently, like I am part of consumer hardware operations team. And within the operations team, I lead a small team of data analysts, and we provide customer support analytics, and we can talk more about it later on, like through the questions. But yeah, that's pretty much my story has been. So sure, I think like Karishma, do you wanna start?
Fantastic. Thank you so much. It was a lovely journey, I must say, and good to hear that you're from the heart of India. So we'll start with the question answer round. So Vaibhav, apart from this, what is your typical day as an operations strategy and analytics manager?
Sure. So I would say like the way I would answer this question is like how, say, operations, my current like consumer hardware operations fit in the broader Google umbrella. So let me start with that, and then maybe I can touch base on specific things which we do at Google.
Sure, perfect.
So Google, I don't know like how many people follow like how Google is trending. So back in the days when I joined, I'm talking about like 2008, Google wasn't as big as it is right now. So we are like 100,000 people now. And I think at that time we were close to maybe 10,000 people. And the company wasn't structured in business units. So we were just like a small company structured by function. So engineering was one function, product was one function, marketing was one function, finance was one function. So that's how kind of like it worked. And round about like 4 years into my role, Larry Page took over as a CEO of Google and structured the company into business units. So now we are kind of like following that, I would say like that structure. And it's very typical of like how when the company grow to bigger size, they get structured at the business unit level. So I'm part of one of the business units of Google, which is called consumer hardware. And again, like this is a recent initiative from Google where we have ventured into the hardware business. So earlier, like Google had never manufactured devices. This is the first time we are manufacturing our own Google Home devices, Pixel phones. We have like Pixel books. So it's a big, rich portfolio of hardware devices. So I'm part of that bigger team, consumer hardware. Within consumer hardware, there are again like multiple functions, and customer care is one of those functions. So within customer care, the set of responsibilities pretty much are like, if consumers buy our devices, they have certain expectations, they have certain feedback which they need to provide to us, and also like they have, if they run into technical issues with the product or any like warranty related issues or product defects or something like that, so they reach out to our team. So we are the intermediary between the product team and our consumers. So we help kind of bridge that gap. And within that team, my team leads the analytics and strategy piece of customer care. And by that, what I mean is we measure like how effectively we are providing we're providing customer care. And when I say measure the success, that kind of falls into two buckets. One is like measuring the quality of customer care operations. For example, like how happy our customers are when they reach out to us for any help. And the second bucket, I would say, would fall on the efficiency. So Google, again, like with scale of things, we handle a lot of volume. So one of the key goals for any operations team is to make sure that we are providing support in the most efficient way. So those are kind of like two buckets, I would say, quality and efficiency. And analytics team helps in measuring, building the infrastructure, and like associated tasks with that. Some of the things which answering the specific question around like what set of activities does my team do on a day-to-day basis. So one would be we are building the infrastructure, and that infrastructure is so dynamic in Google ecosystem that like you need to keep it updated and keep it like alive. So building the whole infrastructure, which requires a lot of skill sets like data engineering skills, analytical skills, having some kind of like understanding of how things need to be scaled. So that comes into that particular job category. Then we have like the second set of activities include like analytical insights. So we play with lots and lots of data. Someone who has worked at Google or is familiar with Google would know that like we are a data-driven company and we obsess about data. So kind of like capturing this data, analyzing it, and creating insights which can help run the business better is another set of responsibilities we do as a team.
Wonderful. Yeah. That will suffice. So great. So my next question is, Vaibhav, what is the most fun part of your job?
That's a good question, Karishma. Something which I think about myself a lot as well. I would say like problem solving. Google is a highly complex ecosystem with a lot of tools and technologies and stacks and homegrown things. So being able to, as an analytics, as a customer care analytics team, being able to solve the problems and like being able to connect the dots in this whole technology landscape, being able to work with cross-functional teams, being able to get them on board. So it's kind of like a product management-ish role in some ways, but within the analytics framework. Because we're building a lot of things in the infrastructure space. So that's, I would say, like problem solving in a very complex ecosystem where you get intellectually challenged and where you have to test out a lot of your interpersonal skills, social skills as well, is something pretty exciting.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. And apart from this, what are the 3 challenges associated with your job position?
Sure. So I would say like one is the volatility in the business. We like again, like I'm talking specifically about my kind of like group, which is consumer hardware. It's a relatively new area for Google, and we have like strong competition in terms of like Amazon's, Apple's, and Microsoft, and a lot of like the tech kind of big giants out there, and they have been doing this. Like consumer hardware has been core of their business, but it hasn't been core of Google business, because Google has mainly been on the software, internet services side. So since it's a relatively new space, the volatility, the change in strategy, the on the spot kind of like, directionally business changing creates a lot of I would say like effect on customer support analytics team. So we need to keep adjusting to all the real-time changes which are happening. It could be around a lot of like restructuring in the organization. It could be around a lot of new technologies being thrown at us. It could be around like completely changing the business strategy. So being able to manage this volatility with a lot of like cool-headedness, I think, is one of the biggest challenges. The second, I would say, like, and this is specific to customer support space, the tools and technology stack is very fragmented, because again, it's a relatively new area within the industry. So you have like some established channels like phone support and chat support, but then there are like other channels like social media, where Twitter support, Facebook Messenger support. So all of those like ways in which customers are now reaching out to their businesses is something very new, and the tools, the space hasn't evolved that much, and as a result, there are like many players, many startups creating solutions. So it creates a lot of like complex, fragmented tools and technology stack. And sometimes, like for our team, which is kind of like an omni-channel team, which needs to consolidate all the solutions, we need to bring everything together, and that becomes extremely challenging as well. But I think that's where the fun lies as well. So I would say like those two are the key ones, and the third one is like the cross-functional aspects of our role. So we need to work with a lot of teams. Like we touch almost like 14, 15 teams in Google. We rather partner with 14, 15 teams. So being able to kind of like speak the language which they speak, which may be like, you may have to talk to engineering teams. They have their own language. You need to be like really smart when you talk to them in understanding the engineering terminology. But then you may have to like then talk to the sales team. You have to talk to the marketing team. You have to talk to like the product facing team. So everyone speaks their own terminology and the language, and you have to kind of like be updated, and to be able to effectively partner with them, you have to be on the same page as well. So volatility, tools and technology space, and I would say like the cross-functional aspect of the role.
Great.